Glory to you.
Glory to you, Lord.
On a Sabbath day, Jesus had gone for a meal to the house of one of the leading Pharisees, and they watched him closely. He then told the guests a parable, because he had noticed how they picked the places of honor. He said this, when someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take your seat in the place of honor. A more distinguished person than you may have been invited. And the person who invited you both may come and say, give up your place to this man. And then, to your embarrassment, you would have to go and take the lowest place. No, when you are a guest, make your way to the lowest place and sit there, so that when your host comes, he may say, my friend, move up higher. In that way, everyone with you at the table will see you honored. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the man who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to his host, when you give a lunch or a dinner, do not ask your friends, brothers, relations, or rich neighbors, for fear they repay your courtesy by inviting you in return. No, when you have a party, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. That they cannot pay you back means that you are fortunate, because repayment will be made to you when the virtuous rise again. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Still had the note from the psalm in my head. Humility is one of those virtues, qualities, call it what you like. I'm going to call it a virtue because that's what the church calls it. It's one of those virtues that we love it when we see it in others. But when it comes to living it ourselves, it can be another story. We may not even realize that someone is being humble, but we just sense it. The ego is in check. They are modest when they talk about themselves. They're not big noting themselves. They haven't got tickets on themselves. We just sense that quality. But when it comes to living it ourselves and exhibiting that ourselves, it can be quite a different story. Why? Because humility is also closely tied to another virtue, which is kind of connected with, not kind of, very much connected with the 8th commandment. What's the 8th commandment? Hello, good morning. Thou shalt not steal is number 7. It's good for revision. Thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbour. So basically, lying. Thou shalt not lie. Now, how is lying connected, or not lying, so telling the truth, connected with humility? Because, as St. Teresa of Avila, the first woman doctor of the church, defined it, I think it's, the Spanish would say, andar de la verdad. Is that, am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Where is she?
Yeah, on the side.
I'm looking for her. I can't find her. Anyway,
Repeat it again, Father.
is andar de la verdad, walk in the truth.
Yeah.
To walk in the truth. It was written in Old Spanish, so I'm not sure if it was contemporary Spanish, but that's what she defined humility as. Walking in the truth. In other words, acknowledging the truth about yourself. The truth about yourself. Now, what's the truth about ourselves? The deepest truth is that we are beloved children of God. Much loved children of God. Loved enough for Him to send His Son to die for us on the cross. No one has ever loved us that much, or will ever love us that much. No matter how much our families and closest friends would love us. So that's the deepest truth about ourselves. But another very deep truth is that we are fundamentally broken. We're sinners. We don't have it all together. And we need help because we cannot fix ourselves. So many of the messaging that we receive in our culture, whether television, social media, newspapers, billboards, whatever it is, the messaging is, you've got to be this, you've got to be that, you've got to be the other. And the reality is, I cannot be all those things. I cannot. I don't have this or that gift or that strength and whatever. So the messaging is ultimately fake it until you make it, but we don't actually make it. So we keep faking. And so many live so much of their lives living with masks on. Whereas Jesus Christ comes to set us free, to teach us and remind us of what is truly good and beautiful about us and what is the deepest truth, and to set us free from the other falsehoods so that we can in fact walk in the truth, as St. Teresa of Avila reminds us. This is the virtue of humility. He sees the people, the guests. So this is one of the leading Pharisees, and on a Sabbath day, you entertain. Right? You entertain, you show hospitality. You don't do more than a Sabbath walk. That was what the Pharisees interpreted it. You've probably wondered about a Sabbath walk. How long is a Sabbath walk? About a kilometre. So you don't do more than a kilometre. And of course, no work. Certainly no unnecessary work. So he says, take the lowest seats. In other words, don't big note yourself. Don't big note yourself. Recognize that you are deeply loved by God and really be very, very convinced of this. But don't think you have to get glory for yourself. Now, the desire for glory and honor, you might think from what I've just said, or maybe what our Lord is saying, that somehow it's twisted. But the desire for glory and honor is put into our very hearts by no one less than God Himself. How come? Well, St. Augustine got this right years and years, centuries ago, when he said, Lord, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you. What's that got to do with glory? Well, if God has made us for Himself, God is glory, infinite glory. He has made us to long for this, to desire honor and praise and gratitude and just to be filled with His infinite presence. But He says to them, I will give you, yes, He says to us, I will give you this if you serve me and love me in a life of faith, and I will give it to you in its fullness in eternity. But being the broken human beings that we are, we want to seek it in other ways. We want to seek human glory instead. Now, human glory is very fake. It's very passing. You look at the way politicians treat one another, or the movie stars in Hollywood. Well, we pick on Hollywood a lot, but it's not just Hollywood, anywhere. The limelight. I was involved in a reality show when I was in America. Probably many of you don't know that, and I was actually the host for the show. And they think, oh well, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel. But it was a show about, it was called God or the Girl. You still look it up on the internet and find some article about it. It was helping young men discerning between priesthood and married life. Now, what I realized, and when we were filming in Universal Studios, the guys there, the normal photography crew, were just amazed at these young blokes, because they weren't full of themselves, they weren't constantly being a pain in the neck, as apparently a lot of actors and actresses are. They weren't demanding. And I said to the director of the show, I said, why is it this and that? And he says, people long to be on television. And these guys are just normal guys. I thought, isn't that how we should all be? But apparently not. So you see, the seeking of the vain glory, human glory, is a very shallow thing. And Christ is warning us against this. So what's going to save us? If we actively cultivate the virtue of humility. We seek to walk in the truth about ourselves. You see, we all have different gifts. But in our culture, we have a culture that tends to reward gifts. So, for instance, someone may be extremely, intelligent, or maybe a phenomenal artist, or musician, or athlete, or whatever it is it happens to be. And so that person somehow is great because they have those gifts. But let me ask you something. Are gifts something that we receive or something that is we've earned? Now, some will say both, but I will say it's actually a gift. We receive it. That's why we call it a gift. It's a gift. It's a talent given to us by God. But, we may have to work to sharpen it, polish it, and make it shine, but the gift is there. I'll give you another scenario. I did art in years 9 and 10 in high school because, I wanted to learn a bit about that. I couldn't draw for peanuts. I still can't. I can't paint. I could write nice commentaries on Michelangelo and Raphael and Picasso and so forth, but that's not drawing, that's not art. I don't have a talent for art. So I can try all I like, but it's not gonna come. Maybe I can pray and God will miraculously give me the grace to do that. Some people have a tremendous gift for anything they do with their hands. Metalwork, woodwork, pottery, I don't know, anything. But they can't read a book, they'll fall asleep. There's no academic ability there. You see, different gifts. And we flourish when we exercise our gifts. But gifts are not what's worthy of honour and praise. St. Thomas Aquinas, the great doctor in the second millennium of the church, says that the only thing worthy of honour in a human being is virtue. Virtue. Why is virtue? Because virtue is the very thing that requires us, or is a result rather, of that active cooperation with the grace of God in so many areas of our lives. And virtue, or growing in virtue, whether it's kindness, generosity, prudence, good judgment, self-control, justice, inner strength, right? You name them all. Whatever it is, it requires us to confront ourselves and our weakness. And the foundation of all the virtues is in fact the virtue of humility. This is why the tree of the spiritual life, our lives with Christ, the roots of it are humility. Humility. What shines on top is when we shine in faith, hope, and love. But faith, hope, and love grow when our humility grows. And humility grows when we walk in the truth. But this is not so easy to do. It's easier said because it means constantly having to confront myself, doesn't it? It means constantly having to admit where my heart truly lies. And sometimes we prefer the delusion, the deception about what we think about ourselves rather than the reality. When I was working in America now many years ago, I was in Illinois and I was walking across the car park. The snow had already fallen for some weeks and now had become compact, covered in ice. And I'm racing across and slip. Wham, I went on my backside. What would you think was the first thought that went through my head? Did anybody see me? Ravi, that's it. Did anybody see me? It wasn't, ouch. After that, I looked around. Oh, no one saw me. It's great relief. Oh, nobody saw me. Big deal. Then I felt the pain of hitting the hard ice. But you see, that's kind of our screwiness. That is screwiness, and I laugh about it now. I tell you what, I didn't laugh about it then. I didn't. See, we take ourselves too seriously sometimes. Think, okay, someone sees me fall. So, you know what? People fall all the time. All the time. Earlier this year, I was walking down the stairs, just bouncing along in the morning, trying to check something in the kitchen, and I slipped and broke a toe. Oh, wow. My doctor tells me, you know, Father, one thing I say to my patients, don't fall. I think he's trying to warn me for the future. You know, you start breaking bones and so, well, I just did. But you see, there's this self-consciousness. Now, had there been a deeper awareness, why would I think, oh, did someone see me? Because I want people to think well of me. That Father doesn't fall for no reason, and he slips on the ice. Tell you another story. I was in Lake Wisconsin this time, and I was going for my first experience in doing water skiing. Never skied before. And the guy told me, you know, we've got to go from 0 to 36 miles an hour in one hit. I said, can you do it slowly? He says, no, or it won't pull you out of the water. So anyway, put a life jacket on, and I'm looking 60 feet of water below me, or 60 meters of water, sorry. Very dark. But anyway, there were no sharks or anything like that. So he pulls me out, and off I go. And of course, I'm hanging on to this cord. And immediately, I go head first into the water. Now, anyone who's skiing knows, if you get pulled that way, you let go of the rope. So I'm hanging on for a few seconds. I'm thinking, this is not working. I better let go. All right. So waves are coming all over me, the wake of the boat, of course, and you know, have a few mouthfuls of water. Wow, it's water skiing. Great experience, you know. Try another go at it. This time, I'm very careful not to fall forward. So what happens? I slip backwards, and the same thing happens again. Waves are pummeling me from all directions. I realized I probably didn't have much capacity for water skiing. You know what? I haven't tried it since. Now, the reality, then the guy after me was waiting to have a go. Says, after seeing Father Mark drown, yeah, I'm not going to have a go. You know, so but you see, that was the thing. So that you can imagine what that did for my ego. And then later that afternoon, I was visiting a family in the area, and anyway, they had a farm and had a few guns. And I thought, can I have it wasn't a gun with bullets, it was a pellet gun, something like that. So anyway, I shot, say, from here to where John the Bortley is at the front here, and I'm shooting at the target, and do you think I could hit a target? No. Anyway, brought the target a bit closer, still missing. 2 meters away, and I'm still missing the target. You know, by now you conclude I'm a bad shot. So anyway, I thought maybe the sight's off. But I just thought to myself afterwards, and at that moment I was licking my wounds, right? I was feeling sorry for myself, and I'm thinking, Now, if I'd been a bit more accepting of my own limitations, I probably wouldn't have felt that way. The reason I tell you this story is that sometimes life and God in His providence provides opportunities for us to grow in humility. To take life seriously, yes, but to not take ourselves so seriously. To realize that ultimately we are very limited. No matter what our talents may be. We're limited, we're fragile, we're weak, we can be goofy, we mess up, we are sinners. And if we accept this about ourselves, we are set free. But we can also deny it And there are so many who live in denial. And so then they spend a lot of psychological energy and emotional energy trying to keep up a false facade of something that they are not. So today's gospel, yes, is an invitation to grow in the virtue of humility. But as we grow in that virtue, what happens to us is we start to accept ourselves more as we are. But we realize that in our limitations, we are deeply loved by God. And whether we are a rock star or ordinary Joe Blow, we are deeply loved by God. And God is not going to love us 1 inch the less. God loves us nonetheless. But He reveals the truth to us, walking in the truth. And He reveals the truth to us. And as Jesus says to us in the Gospel, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So the virtue of humility is a prerequisite for walking in interior freedom. May we all be free, and thus allow the grace of God to create of our lives all that He wants to do for His kingdom.